It's a start of a new day and, of course, a new week. This is Enterprise Morning, reaching you from Enterprise Television. I am Henry Igwebike. We'll be starting off, of course, with our newspaper headlines just to see what we have, and right after that is our main conversation. Also for today, please do well to be part of what we do. You can always find and reach us at enterprisetvnews.com. You may equally like, comment respectfully, and follow us on all our social media platforms at Enterprise TV7. We're very honored to have with us Mr. Kenneth Ikenwa. He is a lecturer and also a public affairs analyst. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Harry. Thanks for having me on. Nice being with you again.
Thank you very much. So let's start off with our newspapers. The Punch, of course, we have the big story here. Telecom's tariff hike. Federal government deploys security agents as NLC insists on protest. And also we have on the top strip, OPEC foresees lower Dangote refinery petrol price. Borno missing children rise as Boko Haram steps up recruitment. Ensure fairness in deporting Nigerians. Federal government tells Donald Trump. And also we have local government crisis. Adeleke Oyetola trade words. Labour Party suspends services. Mr. Ikenwa, I want you to speak to the issue of the Telecom's tariff hike. Of course, NLC insists on the protest. But my question is, do you think the Nigerian Labour Congress are really going after what they shouldn't go for, because the federal government is the cause of all of this? The high cost of doing business is on the high. Everything has gone high. Only those operating telecommunication facilities are left behind. So don't you think it's worthy enough to just allow them, give us better services while Nigerians just pay for it? Don't you think so?
All right, I've been at the forefront of examining critically this issue with respect to hikes and the services provided by telecoms companies, basically divided into two: those that give us mobile services, GSM companies, and the internet service providers, other ISPs, who do not actually have the GSM license. And I can tell you that we need to be careful with that analysis and do it holistically. And I am on the side of the Nigerian people when it comes to that analysis. There is no amount of money that any company can give me for public relations or for consultancy to support, the telecoms companies. And why is that? Even at my lectures at the university, I delivered lectures on this and, did critical analysis. I really think that innovation is important, to actually move a country forward, to promote economic growth and development. And like I told my students recently, innovation must reduce the cost of doing business, on the one hand. Let's take it. It's a tripartite argument. Number one, the adoption of innovation is expensive. Over time, where with innovation you build economies of scale and scope, innovation should reduce the cost of doing business. And lastly, innovation should increase the outcomes that are to be enjoyed from the business being carried on. So let's look at how innovation should reduce the cost of doing business. This innovation, these services, of course, from early adoption were expensive. But now you have about 200 million subscribers that are, giving you the pool for which your incomes are coming, likely from the largest market from Africa, from the biggest market in Africa. I would have expected a situation whereby rather than increasing the cost of the services that Nigerians are supposed to be getting, you can reduce the degree of the service, you can reduce the amount of data and leave the cost to be the same. Technically, and nobody has said this to these telecoms companies. That means if I was paying 1,000 naira for 1 gig hitherto, and you are considering a 50% increase, what this should have been rightly advised, so that this kind of mayhem, this kind of anomaly we're about to experience over this issue, which Nigerians do not need and do not deserve, which I think is a just major source of distraction in Nigerian people, would have been averted. All you will have done is to announce to us that you are reviewing the product, you're reviewing the services, so that while still being able to afford that 1,000 naira that is so hard to get in Nigeria today, I will now be paying 500 megabytes as against 1 gigabyte for the same cost of 1,000 naira. That leaves me with the responsibility of managing my data or paying more to get to that 1 gig I would usually have. And there will have been no problem.
But don't you think that's a Trojan horse? It's same old, same old. It's as good as equally increasing it and increase the cost of the value of data. Don't you think so?
That shows that those who advise the regulators and those who advise the actors are not even advising those regulators and those actors in the collective interest of the marginal benefits, marginal social benefits that these services actually create for Nigerians. The Nigerian economy, in as much as the digital literacy level is low, in as much as the internet penetration level has now dropped to about 43%, the Nigerian economy runs on data. The small ice cream man, the small suya man, the small vendors that sell food, they now know what data is. They now communicate with, their customers. They now vend their goods through social media platforms, and everybody is being carried along. And so for you to make that unnecessarily expensive at this point in time, where everybody is crying foul to the hyperinflation, to the skim inflation, to the shrink inflation that Nigerians are experiencing, what should have been obtainable in this case is to shrink inflate rather than overinflate. Shrink inflate, and what does that mean? You will just have gone about shrink or skim inflate. All you will have done is to reduce the quantity of data we get for the same amount, which technically means that you are indirectly increasing. It will now be the burden, the onus will be on me as a consumer, as a customer, to determine how much data I need to use, or to determine if I will pay more to get what I was enjoying hitherto. That is better economics. That is better economics that takes into account the sensitivity of price increment to the Nigerian people at present, and the sensibilities, the collective sensibilities of Nigerians who are struggling to make sure that they keep enjoying their bread every day. So I think that we should take a look at it again. We do not deny the fact that the cost of production and the business environment is quite volatile, it's quite unpredictable, it's quite complex, the cost of production is high. We don't deny that. But again, like I said on another platform, these telecoms companies are making a kill in Nigeria. Have they reviewed the salaries of their executives? Have they considered other corporate strategies that they could use to weather this present temporary storm? These companies pay a lot. Have they looked at shrinking their workforce? Have they looked at taking advantage of what we call the sharing economy? And I'll give Nigerians, and I'll give I'll give Nigerians, in particular, one of the reasons why this cost is quite humongous for these firms. Because we have this idea of individuality, business individuality, as a major philosophy of doing business in Nigeria. What does that mean? As against having the sharing, template for doing business in Nigeria. Almost every ISP, almost every telecoms company in Nigeria or in major cities in Nigeria look for a space of land to erect their telecom sites, which we call masts. But are you aware that these same masts that you see in different places in Nigeria, some not far from each other, over 1,000 meters or 500 kilometers apart, or 500 meters apart from each other? At least in my area here, I could see one from my house and see two from my house from where I'm sitting, except for the one that was recently moved. Are you aware that this telecoms mast, can be shared by different companies? The one that is presently, as I speak, providing me internet service, who I will not mention, except you want to come and advertise on ET, which I'll advise them. All right? Each time I take a walk past that mast, Henry, the generator of that mast, servicing that mast, is on for 24 hours. So calculate how much diesel. And I actually feel for that company. And they have not even increased. They tried to increase their rates and they apologized to us after a week that they were no longer increasing it. But now that the regulators have given them wholesale rights, regulated right, gazetted right to do, I don't know what you're expecting from that company. But you can imagine, if that same mast was hosting Company T, Company M, Company G, and Company A, Nigerians should decode those companies. How it would have been cheaper for those companies to provide mobile, voice, data services for us right in the environment, right in the vicinity where I stay. So the regulators should be more innovative. The regulators should be more intelligent and intellectual in looking at these things and in taking decisions in the best interest of Nigerians, so that we can, at all sectors, in all sectors, begin to experience what we call Pareto optimality. You can't be making decisions in this set of companies as against 80% of Nigerians that are suffering, that are living under $2 a day. Not at this state, not at this stage where we are economically. And that is my take on that.
All right.
Beautiful. So let the major players go back to the sharing economy. Let them take advantage of sharing facilities, sharing innovation, sharing telecom sites within themselves. And rather than increase the prices, let them reduce the data that they are giving Nigerians.
All right. Beautiful. Beautiful. So let's quickly just get to the Guardian newspaper and straight to our talking points. Alleged $150 million Binance bribe. HEDA wants accused lawmakers probed. I would love to sincerely apologize for putting you yet again on another hot seat. But of course, we need to talk about some of these things if we must get things right in this country. The Binance man that was held, quite some time in Nigeria has alleged that our lawmakers demanded, even the federal government itself equally made some demands, allegedly. Of course, he said $150 million. So they can allow him, of course, get away or so. But speak to us on this particular matter. We, of course, have not had anything from the lawmakers, supposed lawmakers, but a situation where someone is labeling us as being complicit. How bad is our perception right now around the world, diplomatically?
Well, Henry, for the first time on national TV, I would say that even though I am apolitical and I'm not a member of any political party, a good number of my students and constituents are already telling me politics should be my next destination. So I would announce, through your platform for the first time, and to the credit of ETV, that I have political intentions.
Oh, beautiful.
But not anytime soon.
Beautiful.
And in Nigeria, the internet never forgets and the internet never forgives. And before this, lawmakers, some of whom will be there, maybe when I get appointed, or when I get elected, or when I get nominated, they will, bring up this video.
Yes.
I say, yes, you said this about us in 1932. Yes. Can you explain your?
Yes, like Daniel Bwala. Like Daniel Bwala.
That is right now, handling one of the key ministries in Nigeria. I may be made to prostrate. Where I come from, we don't prostrate. But I think I remember then, that I have Yoruba blood in me, and I will humbly prostrate and give it a culture. But again, that's on a lighter note. I love to speak the truth to power.
Yeah.
And I like to quote once upon a time military man who metamorphosized into a politician and who I think across certain circles and quarters in Nigeria is now recognized as a former elder statesman, and that is General Musa Yaradua. I think it should be Musa. The older one was Musa. The younger one we lost as president was Shehu.
Yeah.
So one of the Yaraduas, but the military one. And he did say, and I quote, that not only are officials in Nigeria corrupt, corruption is official in Nigeria. And so in modern parlance, how do we reinterpret that? Kleptocracy has become entrenched in the Nigerian folklore and culture. And it will take a lot of guts. It will take a lot of proper moral standing not to be a partaker of what has become the norm. Now, I've read about this accusation from the Binance guy, and one or two lawmakers have come out to openly denounce it. And I think I read about one who I can't mention now, I can't even remember the name, who said he was never a part of any committee that was looking into the issues that had to do with economic and financial crimes in the country at the Green Chamber, or was it the Red Chamber? And that he only stepped in there when the meeting was going on and sat down there. And how come is his name appearing that he never demanded for anything? And I also think that some quarters say that the NSC did that. But I think there's a lot of mudslinging going on. And I think that there is a lot of attempts by some parties to give some dogs, in quotes, a bad name in order to be able to hang these dogs or hang the dog collectively. Now, it's important that we go back back to what the existing data says. We have an index called the Corruption Perception Index. And that tells us how countries are rated given certain criteria and where Nigeria actually stands. I don't have that document right before me, but I know that at a point in time, Nigeria used to rate between the first 10 most corrupt countries in Nigeria. So it begs the question again, and it besets the question again, what will be the global perception about Nigeria on issues like this? I think I want to be more retrospective on that subject matter. Who are the enablers of corruption in Nigeria? When people steal money in Nigeria, steal money from Nigeria, steal money from Nigerians, where are these monies taken to? Where are they carted to? Where do these people go to buy houses? Where do these people go to invest in gold? Where do these people go to invest in real estate? Where do these people keep these monies? From the same countries that look down on Nigeria and tell us we are naked, we are bad, we are corrupt. Can the kettle call the pot black? We have an ancestor that has left us a long time ago, who jokingly keeps sending us money from Switzerland and from various bank accounts all over the world, which speaks to a biblical passage that says, even though he's dead, he's still alive, sending us money. How did those monies get to those countries? And why did it take almost 25 years after his death for those countries to start repatriating those monies to us after taking a commission? Who's corrupt? Who really is corrupt?
But
who really is the of corruption?
Yeah, but the people on that reference never begged us to bring our loot to those places. It's the conscious nature of our leaders that had made that possible. Because if you didn't bring it, they won't collect it. Don't you buy that drift?
I grew up under one of the most fantastic law enforcement officers in Nigeria. I grew up under his training, I grew up under his tutelage, and I grew up within that constituency. And there's a popular saying in that constituency, it's called aiding and abetting. So in Nigeria, for instance, if you buy a stolen good, you are liable to face the penalty, because you did not do your due diligence to investigate the source of the good. How can somebody come and sell to you a car worth 50 million or 2 million, and you don't even know what the person does, and you later discover that the car was stolen and traced to you, and you say you did not do? Ignorance is not an excuse. So we can't cover up for those people under that scale of reference. We can't cover up for those countries. When a general or when an individual brings to you, especially in this internet age, where you can quickly Google Kenneth Ikenwa or Henry Ezebike to find out what he does or what they do, brings to your country $50 million. Recently at the airport in London, we saw and heard that $400,000 was found in a suitcase. How did he get there? Where was he going to? And so on and so forth. So I'm not trying to cover up our state, our legal practitioners. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to cover our lawmakers. A lot has happened over time. I mean, we've listened to panels where people like Aruma Ote, former Director General of the Nigerian Stock Exchange or Securities and Exchange Commission, was being accused by lawmakers, and she started exposing them and saying, is it because I failed to buy a ticket for you? Is it because I failed to give you 5 million? It's on the internet. The internet never forgets, it never forgives. And recently we had another episode about 2 years ago, and we call it the off the mic syndrome. Off the mic, off the mic. We know these things are there. We know they're there. We know they exist. What are we going to do about them? We will need leadership by example. We will need a leader that will not cover up people because you want to be favored for placement, for nomination in the next election. And I think this should begin to make us rethink the Nigerian constitution, bringing in the quota system, changing the narrative about it, or changing the dynamics about it, and talking about DEI. Because if we don't do DEI, we will continue to have DIE. We will continue to have dreams and aspirations dying in this country. I think by the time we take a look at and maybe begin to talk about giving single tenures for specific positions. I think this issue of kleptocracy and the guts that a leader will need to do what he or she needs to do will be there. But as long as you keep having the hope and aspirations for your next election and you want to favor and play to your party's base, to your constituents' base, I think it will be very hard for us to have moral stance on these issues.
Very, very true. Of course,
is there a possibility that there could be some degree of truth in what the Binance-related officials are saying? Of course, yes. Is there also a zero possibility that the individuals that are being mentioned right now are not involved? There possibly can be a zero possibility that they were not involved. Is there a high possibility that there were some third parties involved in a negotiation for a transaction? Very, very well, yes. These things happen. So, we must consider the interest of our country, we must consider the national interest of our country, and we must continue to hold these elected officials to account. We must continue to ensure transparency. If there was transparency and no form of secrecy shrouded around the investigation of these individuals, we won't be having this question. If when these people were investigated, Nigerians were allowed to listen to the proceedings and see the outcomes, we won't be having this problem. So I think much more than looking at who asks for money and who don't ask for money, we should look at our laws, we should look at our investigation processes, we should make it more transparent, we should make it more accountable, and we should ensure fair hearing and full disclosure. That way, we may reduce the collateral damage that comes back to us as a country, which affects our reputation and damages the reputation of people, those both guilty and those not guilty.
Very, very well said. Fair hearing. Of course, and being transparent in our ways would actually go a long way to help us, because the truth remains that the world is a global village, and whatever happens in Nigeria is a click away from any part of the world. So when we debase ourselves, when we mess ourselves up with some of the stories that you hardly can hear in other countries around the world, it's actually so unfortunate that what goes around comes around. It has a way of always tying us up one way or another. Just remember the denial of the visas by the military officers, 80 plus of them. Someone would say it's issues related to the embassy, but if you take a look at it very well, you discover that it's what in pidgin English they will say "see finish." Of course, don't you think so? in 30 seconds.
Well, I was particularly disturbed by that report and the ensuing reportage, and I also don't think that the actions of the Nigerian security advisor and the language, in as much as it was emotionally driven, was courageous. I don't think that was diplomatic. But having grown around the paramilitary constituency, and having been around most of these top military officers, grown up with them and see what they do, and I have classmates that are also generals in the military right now. I mean, if my father didn't stop me from joining the army, I would be a general in the military at about now, I find it quite disturbing that top military officers were denied visas into a particular country. I think it's the height of insolence, it's the height of disrespect. It affects so much about the perception of both countries and about the way that we are also seen in the world. And I think, like you said, borrowing the pidgin language balance, when there is a C finish, it is a point where we now need to call ourselves back, to order, have meetings with ourselves, for ourselves, about ourselves, have deep introspections and retrospections, and ask ourselves, where are we and why are we where we are, and what can we do about it? So if the topmost military officer in Nigeria is embarrassed the way he was embarrassed, which is an embarrassment for Nigeria, what will become of me, who never became a general, and who will never become a general, who is just a public analyst? So we must bring back that spirit of nationalism. We must repair our country. We must make every country in Nigeria respect the green passport again. We must stop the idea that Nigerians are bad people going out of this country. We must stop allowing our people to be embarrassed at different high commissions, at different embassies, embarrassed at different international points of entries in the country. I've been in situations where Nigerians were separated and segregated from others and scrutinized terribly, scrutinized like criminals before entering a particular country. These things must stop. And it begins with what we do at the federal level, at the toppest level of leadership, and the examples we show. And it begins with also, having the courage that China had some 40, 50 years ago to close up our country, to sit down and rebuild our country and make our country the pride of Africa, the genuine giant of Africa that everybody will be willing to have our people come to their country and to have relations of doing business and trading with Nigeria. It's a bad one for this country, and it's not something to mock about, it's something to laugh about. It's something that begs a lot of questions. And in Latin, we will say this is a big principio petitio, and this leads us to another Latin maxim which says, Quo vadis? Nigeria, quo vadis? Where are we going?
Thank you so very much, Kenneth Ikenwa, for really making this a wonderful time with us. We truly do appreciate you.
Always my pleasure.
Beautiful. So we'll be heading straight to our main conversation. Thank you so very much. We'll be heading straight to our conversation for today, and that's when we return. Matawali believes or not will support Tinubu's presidential re-election for 2027, while Julius Abure pledges a Labour Party's presidential ticket for Peter Obi. That in a beat. Please don't go anywhere.